The Pathfinders, 100 years of women's journey towards gender equality. The journey towards gender equality and empowerment for Kenyan women has been a long one. It has been one with great highs and great lows as women negotiated very difficult social, cultural, economic and political terrain. Over the years, they have faced internal and external opposition to their gender aspirations, but all the same have persisted and continue to forge on. The journey itself consists of 3 distinct phases. First, between 1900 and 1963, when women led their communities in resisting the imposition of colonial rule and then fought to free their country from the British. Second, between 1963 and 1997, when women waged war against gender inequality and fought to be recognized in various institutions. Third, between 1997 and 2010, when women fought to be included and fairly represented in the Constitution review process. Women in Kenya have always been present, and their history has inspired many other women to reclaim their slot in the public spaces in an effort to improve themselves, their communities, and the nation at large. Today, we shall tell but a few stories of the history of Kenyan heroines that have carried the women's agenda thus far so that their voices and contributions may never be forgotten. We hope that from this, more heroines will be inspired to arise and complete that which was started. Here is to strong women. May we know them, may we be them, and may we raise them. Heroines of the pre-colonial and colonial era. The years between 1900 and 1963 saw Kenyan women rise against colonial administration to participate in the emancipation from colonialism. One such woman was Mekatilili Wamwenza, a brave Giriama who led her people against the British colonial administration and pushed for a return to the traditional Giriama system of governance. She attracted crowds through the Kifudu dance. Central Kenya saw several women set the pace for future roles of women in leadership. Wangu wa Makeri was appointed as an administrator by the British after her husband declined the position. She was also the first female chief in colonial Kenya. Muthoni Kirima, better known as Field Marshal Muthoni, was a strong and clever Kikuyu lady who would sneak food to the Mau Mau fighters in the forest. She became their spy and later on became a Mau Mau fighter with distinction. She rose to the rank of sergeant and later on was bestowed the title of Field Marshal by the late Dedan Kimathi.
Handu hayu na mete ogwo ndatugutite nyeki ya mungunire ikoma ri gitikerekia hau nja mokari nyathogora kai muoyo wenda na ngai augite ndugukua ndungikuo no ngikatia ngihurwo wara nyumba teno ya yule thakame yauma na mato na maniuro na ngihurwo magitiga hau.
Mama Ngina Kenyatta fought in the Mau Mau struggle for independence. She was detained in committee prison for her role in the struggle, while other women were detained in Gitamayu camp. In prison, she was classified as one of the most dangerous detainees. Mama Ngina is also known for promoting women's organizations and supporting girls' education. She has since earned the title Mother of the Nation. Gender equality and women's organization. The years between 1963 and 1967 saw women organize themselves around various issues, including advocating for representation in the government and women empowerment. This came through organization of various groups such as Maendeleo ya Wanawake, with Honorable Phoebe Asio, the first Luo woman elder, leading the team founders. She also sponsored the affirmative action motion in Parliament in April 1997, a radical effort aimed at bringing leadership positions to Kenyan women. For decades, she has effortlessly campaigned to promote education for the girl child, women's human rights, and gender equality in the country. Honorable Asio is also the founder and chairperson for the Caucus for Women's Leadership.
1952, I'd just come out of Embu and I was a teacher in Nairobi. So the British women, wives of district commissioners and settlers, started Maendeleo ya Wanawake. I think initially they wanted information from the African women and nothing more. So they involved African women and I joined. So in 1954, when Mrs. Beecher, who was the wife of the Bishop of East Africa, and also from the Liki family, showed some interest in the development of the African women and involvement in Maendeleo, I joined. And we worked together with several other women who came from various parts of Kenya.
Jane Kiano was the chair of Maendeleo ya Wanawake in the 1970s and early 1980s, and she transformed it into a powerful national organization with thousands of active members. She professionalized Maendeleo and helped Kenyan women become players in the global movement. Under her leadership, the Maendeleo House was built. Terry Kantai worked with the Women's Bureau, the first government institutional mechanism in promoting women's interests. She has worked with women in the formal and informal sector to be economically empowered.
We started mobilizing because the movement became very popular in the church. So we were even sent in different countries, but it was mainly Tanzania and Uganda, to also go and set up similar women union for social action. That is the movement. It is still very important and well entrenched in the country.
Jael Mbogo was one of the founder members of Ford Kenya Party and became its first organizing secretary. She was also a member of Maendeleo ya Wanawake and a great mobilizer of women in the Constitution review process.
They form a coalition of women-led political parties. Then when they go to these mainstream parties, the big ones, they have to bargain. Because now we are so and so, we are controlling this. Hata sisi tunakuunga tu, tutaungana na nyinyi kama hii mguu hii ndio nawashia sisi. Because this is a matter of bargaining.
Professor Eda Gashukia is a pioneering educator whose passion for women's education has never faltered. She is the founding director of the Forum for African Women Educationists, which was established in 1992. FAWE is a Pan-African organization whose membership includes education ministers and vice-chancellors, and its mandate pushes on the advocacy for policy change and implementation of policies and programs aimed at education of women and girls.
I was very scared to go to Parliament, even when we were briefed. I don't know. So what I think drove me those 5 years is because they had said that I'm there to represent women's interests. There's no line to draw between women and children. their health, their education, and so on and so forth.
The late Professor Wangari Maathai was an internationally renowned environmental political activist and Nobel laureate. As chairperson of the National Council of Women, she created the Green Belt movement, which has since planted over 40 million trees across Africa. In 2004, she became the first woman environmentalist to be awarded the Nobel Prize and was honored for her work on sustainable development, democracy, and peace. Zipporah Kitoni is another phenomenal woman. She at one time chaired the Maendeleo ya Wanawake and was among the women who formed the political wing of the affirmative action. She has triumphed in the very challenging male-oriented world of elected politics, which is no easy feat. Lady Justice Effie Owuor was the first lady judge in Kenya. When she was not prosecuting criminal cases, she was protecting children and advocating for human rights. For 33 years, she has focused on the legal rights of Kenyan women and access to justice. She is driven by a desire to see the law and legal processes work for instead of against women. Muthoni Likimani is one of the earliest female authors in the country who has spent her career capturing women's voices. In 1985, her third and most important book, Women and Mau Mau in Kenya, features a reference to her identity number during the Mau Mau struggle. It is a fictional work that dramatizes the role women played and strategies they adopted in their daily lives during the fight for freedom. Muthoni Likimani has continued to fight tirelessly for women's voices to be heard and read. Women and the Constitution-making process. Women played a key role in the formulation of the Constitution of Kenya in 2010. They organized, mobilized, and advocated for inclusion of various issues in the Constitution of 2010, among them the Bill of Rights and the affirmative action clauses. The women also played key roles in bringing the opposing sides together to kickstart the stalled process. As the story of women in the process of constitution making is being written, Honourable Phoebe Asio tops the list for her efforts in championing for women to be part and parcel of the decision making in political and appointive offices. Her counterpart in the story, Honourable Martha Karua, popularly referred to as the Iron Lady, is a former long-standing Member of Parliament for Gishugu constituency and the leader of NARC.
We complain it's the male-dominated parliament that is not passing the law. But I want as women for us to step back and to take account of our actions. And every woman who is in parliament or is in a position of leadership and decision making, ask yourself, what have you done to advance the cause of women?
As Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs, she tabled a bill in Parliament to increase women's representation by 50 seats. She negotiated for the full participation of women in the law and constitutional process. She lobbied members of Parliament to withdraw 2 motions tabled by male members of Parliament to remove affirmative action for women from the Bomas draft of the Constitution. As a lawyer, she has worked closely with FIDA to fight gender-based violence.
When a woman is in a position of leadership and decision making at whatever level, what have you done to contribute? Or do you get there and get this sense of entitlement and think that it's your effort alone that got you there, and you forget to look back and hold the hands of others?
Professor Wanjiko Mukabi Kabira is a professor of literature who has played a unique role in the constitutional review process and other women's struggles for liberation. She has documented the journey women have made and the stories that have been told about their struggles. With her negotiation skills, she played a key role in lobbying policymakers and political leaders to take on board participation through the women's agenda, the constitutional review process, and other policy interventions. Zipporah Kitoni is a former nominated Member of Parliament and Chair of Maendeleo ya Wanawake. She led women to form the Caucus of Women's Leadership to defend women's rights in the constitution-making process and was among the women who formed the political wing of the affirmative action. Professor Julia Ojambo was also active in constitution making and a vocal advocate of the two-thirds gender rule. She brought to the constitutional reform process a wealth of experience from politics and women's organization. She is the founder chair of the Labour Party of Kenya. In 1975, she was elected Member of Parliament. She was appointed as Assistant Minister for Women and Children Affairs. As the Director of Women and Youth in KANU, she mobilized her KANU women in various activities that were not only educational but also political. We celebrate these women and many other women who are not mentioned in this video but made great impacts in the strides towards gender equality. Here today, we honor their collective sacrifice and contributions of the women of Kenya, for without them, today we would not have the gains we have.